Apparently, there's some very defined ways to be black, at least according to some crimson and cream wearing, Gamecock rooting for Southern Bison alum hailing from the city of Hotlanta. But I'm not going to do this. At any rate, here's a clip from episode 8 where we talk about defining your own blackness, why Essence Fest has some folks giving the whole thing a hard look, and yes, we even have words for RG3. Take a listen, share, like, and I'll meet you in the comments.
There's no one way to be black. There are ways that you can obviously represent yourself in the culture, and individuals may give you the side eye, especially
you.
Well, with you having very limited knowledge of certain things, yes, I will give you a side eye, for instance.
Whatever you want to. It doesn't matter because, again, there's no one way to be black. Blackness is beautiful and it comes in all shades, all forms. You coming from the great college of the cult, you should know that.
First of all,
the cult teach you.
Again, it's called Howard University or Mecca if you have problems. So I'm always fascinated by individuals like you who grew up in predominantly white environments and what that experience was like day in and day out, because it did shape and it has shaped a lot of the decisions that individuals make. And it does shape a lot of how it is that an individual may be perceived or perceive certain things in the culture. What is the biggest thing that you wish you would have had more exposure to? What are some of those things?
I always give you a hard time about Howard University.
Yes,
Whatever. It's only because I do admire that experience, right? So being around people that you don't have to apologize that much for being who you are. And there are some things that growing up in all white environments that were a little problematic because there was a lot of educating my peers, right? And so sometimes you just want to be a kid and I don't want to be a teacher. In terms of what I think I was missing, I would have liked to have explored more of the Black culture, not just in the summers when I went to Oklahoma with my mom and dad's family, but more about the history, accomplishments, the things that Black people have contributed to this world. So a lot of that was self-educated on my part, but I would have loved to have had other people that I could have explored those conversations with. I mean, it probably would have led to me starting the new Black Panthers, but who knows? Maybe there was a reason why that didn't happen.
I think everyone knows that I attended the great university that is Howard University. My decision to attend the Mecca was based on a movie. And I think I've shared this with you. I was at that time, I think in the 8th grade, maybe 9th grade, a soldier's play and a soldier story came out, and it had Denzel Washington as a young actor. It also had one of my favorite actors, Howard E. Rollins, by rest his soul. And he was this chocolate guy that just commanded a presence on the screen. And I remember the scene where he stepped off the bus and he had on his military garb and he had these Ray-Ban sunglasses and he had had his hat on, and Robert Townsend, who was also in the movie, was picking him up as he was getting off the bus station. This is set in the 1940s or 50s, I believe. And Robert Townsend his character had never seen someone comport themselves that way. And he asked him, a couple questions, and he said, he graduated from Howard University. And right then, as a 13, 14-year-old, I was like, okay, that's where I want to go to school. Sight unseen. I didn't know a lot about Howard at the time. And that's how I ended up going to the Mecca. It's the only school I applied to. I didn't apply to the University of South Carolina. I didn't apply to Duke or North Carolina. I was going to go to Howard or I was going to go nowhere. And fortunate enough, I was able to get into Howard, and it changed my life in a lot of ways because a lot of my lifelong friends are from Howard. And one of the things that the Mecca does extremely well is it celebrates the culture. You think about the lineage of the individuals who have graduated and matriculated through that school. Howard's imprint is universal. Our receipts are universal. Our receipts are unmatched. I always say that Harvard is white Howard's. And so when you think about Harvard, Harvard University is the white Howard University. When you think about how it is that culture exists, and the one thing that Howard did show me was there was so many different variations of what it is that Black folks across the diaspora were doing. We are meeting with doctors, lawyers, engineers, individuals who are head of states, individuals who are running multi organization. You're exposed to that in so many ways at Howard University, and all of it's like a melting pot of gumbo. and you're meeting with individuals from every state within the United States, people from Iowa, from California, from Texas, from South Carolina, and obviously people from the Midwest. And all of you are together and you're learning about differences and you're learning about different things. And it caused you to take a look at how it is that certain images of Black folk is represented on not only small screen, but big screen. And I remember having this one conversation in one of my classes, and it was about the Jeffersons versus Good Times, and thinking about those two sitcoms and how it is that those sitcoms back in the late 70s, early 70s were beaming out images of the Black family. And for Jeffersons, it was you're moving on up to this deluxe apartment in the sky, and George was a business owner and he had had a lot of success. But when you looked around his house, to be fair, obviously, he was dealing with racism and dealing with interracial marriage and all those things. So he was dealing with it in his own way. But when you looked around his house, there was no culture. There's very little culture with respect to the arts, with respect to Black achievement. Good Times. They were in the projects in Chicago. JJ was an artist. And one of the things that I did during COVID was I went back and looked at Good Times. And the themes of those shows, and this is the mid 70s, the themes of those shows are themes that we're still dealing with today. And it was so forward thinking in terms of how it is that they were dealing with some of the concepts, whether it was gentrification, whether it was housing, whether it was family and the family dynamic with respect to James being the head of the household, and how it is that every time it looked as if they were able to sort of see a light at the end of the tunnel, there was always something that happened that stopped that. And there were a couple of years later where a conversation was happening with the late great John Amos. And one of the reasons he ended up leaving the sitcom was because of they were making Jay the star of the show and the buffoonery that came with him, as opposed to it being a little bit more progressive with where it is that James may want it to go. What shows did you watch growing up? Green Acres?
The biggest hater in my life. I watched Good Times. I mean, I was a tiny little baby. I was so little, like I barely understood. I'm a baby. I did watch Good Times, but I will tell you that that was the part that bothered me. Is any time they were getting ready to move to a different level, something happened. H, whatever his name is, when they're in the wedding, like, dude, keep your big feet out of the way.
Who's the husband? Is it Kenny, Kevin, Kelvin?
Yeah, I have to look that up. But yeah, it was always something that happened. And you never saw that next stage. And as Black people, we know, obviously, that there's a next stage. And so when I talk about, being able to be in environments where I had more exposure, you just saw the images were on TV. So the Jeffersons, watched that, watched Good Times. But, I also watched Little House on the Prairie. I loved Little House on the Prairie. I loved Different Strokes. I loved those Thursday night TV. We watched a lot of nature channels. We did not watch Gunsmoke. We watched a lot of nature channels, a lot of Disney. Our household was very family oriented. So Saturdays and Sundays were spent watching. We didn't watch any
Watched Hee-Haw.
literally the worst. No, we didn't watch that, but we did watch Thursday night TV and we watched like things like that growing up.
On Thursday was Dukes of Hazzard
The Dukes of Hazzards. Yes, yes, we did.
with the huge Confederate flag on the car, but you're not.
That's the interesting thing because those things were not, those are things that I didn't pick up on until later in life. And I was like, ooh, these shows are problematic, right? Even when you look at, I can't look at the name of it right now, but Sanford and Son. And then there was a spinoff on that. And I remember going back and looking at that and Grady, how he was just like, women can't drive, women or whatever. And I was like, this would never get greenlit today. Like it was, I think the 70s and 80s, the media just needs to be canceled. Like the entire 2 decades, just bye, get out of here. They were problematic.
Little data point here. Whitman Mayo, who was the character Grady, is a member of, or was a member, rest his soul, of the greatest fraternity that God created, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
This must end.
I'm just saying that we're everywhere. Keith was the name of Delma's husband.
Yes, poor dumb Keith. Yes.
So the interesting thing about that, and all of it ties together, So when I got to Howard and I saw the art that was depicted in Good Times that was sold on Howard's campus, and that was some of the art that I ended up buying because the artists depicted, even in, and Black folk have always been able to do this, even in our darkest pain, even when things are not going as we would want, we still find joy. And so when you have the creative outlets of the artist to be able to create something that will allow individuals to see, okay, even when things aren't going our way, we can make lemonade. And that's been the soul and the spirit of Black folk throughout our time on this earth. And at least it's been my experience. And a part of that was sort of debated or has been debated this week with respect to what we saw transpire with the Essence Festival, where you had, well, first of all, have you ever been to it? Did you ever go to the Essence Festival? You don't strike me as someone who would be Essence Festival.
John, please stay on task. Like, it is so boring when you go off on some tangent about my experiences. Focus.
Oh, no, you've never been to the Essence Festival.
Again.
Why am I not shocked? So the Essence Festival, I remember the first time that I attended Essence Fest. It was probably 2000. To experience it at that time was such an experience because you had the best of the best in terms of Black entertainment and Black culture, and it was geared toward Black women and Black businesses. And remember, a couple weeks ago, I said that Tavis Smiley had this event that he was hosting that invited individuals like Kamala Harris and Reverend Sharpton and a young Jamal Harrison Bryant. All of them were a part of that event. Tom Joyner was a huge sponsor in terms of sponsoring some of the cultural events that were going on during that time. So the way that the Essence Fest was laid out, it was, you had culture during the day and you had entertainment at night. And you had individuals who were the named musicians on the quote unquote main stage. Those would be the ones that were playing at the Mercedes-Benz Arena or stadium that was there. But for individuals who weren't able to fill a stadium and were better at providing more intimate settings or intimate concerts, they had lounges. And so you could go in and you could see an artist like maybe not an Erica Badu, but an artist like a Bilal or some of the independent artists with our guest a couple weeks ago. Those would be the lounges that those artists would play in. It would seat, a couple hundred people, maybe a couple thousand people, and you have a more jazz type feel with respect to those performances. And then obviously Katrina happened, and that sort of upended Essence with respect to how certain things were done. And then it over the last decade or so is changed. And where Essence used to be, where individuals would carve out that week of July 4th to at least go down to New Orleans and spend with some girlfriends and do whatever, whatever, whatever. I think the movie Girls Trip was sort of based on, or at least a portion of that, them going Essence Fest. And so the thing that stood out to me was what changed with respect to that event where we saw this year a lot of individuals opt not to go. A lot of individuals who did go have terrible experience or have a terrible experience or a bad experience, I should say. The acts who were performing, running hours behind schedule, the things that used to be free were now, there was a charge for it. And it was the talk of social media for the last week or so with respect to is Essence dead? And that's sad because for 30 years, it has been such a huge component of the culture. And so I was thinking about that and we're having some conversations with a couple of friends. And I said, well, what's happened to Essence? And then I went and looked and saw that Essence, and this shocked me, the individuals who put on Essence are not from the culture.
Well, that's interesting.
Firm that puts on Essence is a firm that's Caucasian. Not only that, of the individuals who are at this firm, of the 27 individuals that are at this firm, they employ 3 Black folk.
Extremely interesting.
None of them are in leadership positions.
So that's interesting because I had this thought that spaces like Essence Fest, they celebrate us, they affirm us, they pour into us, and they're important to us. But they're, in some regards, in some aspects, the culture becomes a shield for mediocrity. right? And so even talking about HBCUs, sometimes the experience is subpar. And we're supposed to, I'm just not the experience of your education, but maybe financial aid or going through long lines or housing or things like that. And because it is the culture, we're supposed to be like, well, I mean, it's the culture. So let's buck up and let's do it. The culture can't always be a shield for mediocrity. And I think that's interesting that you're saying for Essence Fest that the leadership is not Black. And I wonder if I keep with this thought, I wonder if there is this expectation that the people that are in leadership said, well, you know what, we could just do whatever because it's Black and they'll accept this. But for people like me that are very protective of their pennies, no, I'm not going to spend it there.
Yeah, that's a good question because that came up. Not only the fact that it is the group that sponsors or produces Essence Fest. And to be fair, Essence Fest does contract with a lot of minority businesses, small minority business, but the main sponsor, the main producer is a white group, a white firm called the Solomon Group out of New Orleans. And so one of the things that probably pissed me off more than anything was you had them decide that they were going to partner with Target.
Dare they?
Well, the flip side of what it is that some of my friends would say is that the contracts with Target had been signed some years back.
Care if they were signed in 1842.
And so Target was providing financial assistance for the event too.
Another reason why it was subpar because Target's like, oh yeah, you're not gonna shop here? Well, how about this?
So look, this is what I would say with the Target thing. You and I both agree Target can kick rocks. But I will say that I get why Target would want to do it. I also understand why Target probably should have taken the approach that, okay, we can write you the check because we want to support you, but it may not be in our best interest right now to be front and center.
Well, if it was in your best interest, if I were Target and I was in marketing or PR, it would have been the most fantastic event ever put on because you have damage control that you need to manage. And so why, when you already have issues, that you would go and support a subpar event? Like you're just not bright, Target. Go away.
Okay, so I'm not going to say that the Essence Fest is a subpar event.
I think that Miss Mills, it was Stephanie, right, that wrote the charged letter that it was no es bueno.
Can you name a Stephanie Mills song?
And we're not here for quizzes. It's just so boring. People don't want to hear quizzes. Like, this isn't school.
So you can't name a Stephanie Mills song.
Is that one of them?
Did you ever watch any of Versus? Did you watch Versus?
Let's keep talking while I Google. Siri, what is Versus? No, I've never heard of this before.
And how can you be a Black woman living in Austin? Okay, anyway.
Always a finite amount of time in the day, and I can't consume or fill the entire day with things that you feel represent Blackness. You're not the be all whatever of Blackness. You don't own Blackness, John.
The silence that you hear, again, is me looking at this woman who is, again, the whitest Black woman that I know.
My friends also take offense to that because what does that mean that I'm the whitest Black person that you know? What are you saying? What are you saying? What does that mean?
Your white girlfriend or something?
Ever knew love like this? But I found it. I know it. I figured it out. No, I think that we're going to table that too. Let's table that and let's get back to the subject at hand.
Subject of hand in terms of culture and the appropriation or misappropriation of the culture and who gets to gatekeep. The bigger question, the issues that we have, and you make some valid points with respect to saying that even when you attend an HBC, that should not in and of itself mean subpar. And I think in a lot of people's minds, when they think of HBCUs, they think of, in some ways, mediocrity. And when you think about the history of HBCUs, and I know you had an interesting conversation on your podcast with a young lady from FAMU, Dr. DeGregory. I'm always cognizant of the fact that HBCUs aren't all a monolith. We all have different things that we do well. I just happen to be a product of the Mecca. And I have friends who attended FAMU. I have friends who attended Morehouse. I have friends who attended Spelman. And I have a son who attended Hampton. I say that to say you are correct from the standpoint that We have to start holding ourselves more accountable for the products that we put out, and more importantly, what we spend our dollars on.
Oh, John, you think about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure that we're clear. If we continue to operate in this narrative that has been supported and promoted by white media, by other people that want to be surprised when we can actually speak English, we need to step up. There was a comment a couple of weeks ago about trust and how that lack of trust impacts our financial ability and it impacts other areas of our lives. And so, for us to have trust, when I hire you, I expect you to do quality work because I'm going to pay you like your white counterpart. But I will also never talk to you again like I would do with anybody. So, our own journey. We own our own narrative. We need to take back that power and stop letting people define who we are. I am so disappointed to hear about this Essence Festival. I did not know that. I'm going to write a strongly worded letter. You know, I love writing letters and speaking to the manager. I'm on it.
You should.
Thank you for allowing me to do that.
And speaking of the culture, the other thing that we did talk about a couple weeks ago was the problematic Robert Griffin Jr. the third. And I was hoping that we would play this with the idiotic comments that he makes with respect to Angel Reese. So this week, he finds himself again in the hot seat with Black America because he falls in squarely into that category of someone who grew up around white folk. And I think there's this type of self-hatred.
Maybe, but I just want to make sure you're clear that just because you grew up in white environments doesn't mean that there is a majority of the people that did that feel self-hatred because I love myself. And I mean, I'm sure you can tell that. I love myself. And I think that there are other things that are going on with this man, and he is a problem.
I'm just saying, what were you just doing with your hair? Bless her. So with RG3, there was a person who'd posted this throwaway line about injuries on what, and this person may have had 30, maybe 40 followers. RG3 has millions of followers. So this person had said something that RG3 took offense to about injuries. Instead of him saying, say this about injuries and it's inappropriate for you to say this about injuries, what RG3 did was he took what this person said, he took the meme that this person posted, and we're going to post this meme as a part of this. I don't like doing it, but I think it's appropriate here.
I go ahead and talk about that.
And so the meme was of Angel Reese dribbling a ball, and she looked like RG3 decided that he was going to post this meme or repost this meme and platform the individual who had posted it originally, and then take the opportunity to say, you know, what I said about Angel Reese in terms of her hating Caitlin Clark is documented because I heard it from individuals within her inner circle who said that, yes, she does hate Angel Reese. And so I'm not mad at Angel Reese because I should be one that's mad at Angel Reese because of her, my family received death threats. But you don't see me doing X, Y, and Z.
Keep giving him a platform. I'm just, right now, it's hot in this room and I'm getting hotter. Like, why does he continue to take up space? You, sir, can go with Target. Goodbye.
I think we give him space because he is, you know, full transparency. He is very, very good at this job of being an analyst.
I don't care what he thinks. I am tired of hearing Black men in particular take away a Black woman's humanity. Like, I am sick of it. I am over it. He's going to get a strongly worded letter along with the Dallas Cowboys. You suck.
Well, yeah,
I always
Dallas.
like to copy the Dallas Cowboys on everything.
Cowboys always. I mean, with RG3, it's again him taking the opportunity to take a shot at this young lady who he clearly has issues with. And so you have a lot of Black folk who do believe that he has some issues with himself with respect to.
He can go get therapy. Leave her out of it. Leave all Black women out of it. You have a picnic to attend, and it is no Black people are there. Just go get your potato salad with raisins and move on.
You know, picnic is a loaded term. It's a racist term. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Oh my God. Delete the sound out.
Had you attended an HBCU, you would have known that. No, look up the.
It sound like racist, but I was like, well, I mean, it does have food, and you know how I feel about food.
Oh, yes. It's a racist term. So you want to use another term instead of picnic.
Okay, let's go ahead and delete that out. And we're going to say, you have an event. Out of here.
I think that, you can be supportive of a person. And, you know, he was trying to be supportive and say, don't say this about Angel Reese, but he took it and made it about him.
And so that's why I'm saying that I don't necessarily know that it's self-hatred. I think it's ignorance. And so you're not a bright person. Why do we need to hear from you? Like you're just not what do you
I'm not going to say he's not a bright. He's extremely.
care? I'm a black woman. He doesn't like us anyway, and I got a slick mouth, so I don't think he's very bright.
No, he's a bright person. He attended.
Opinion. I don't give a shit where he attended. He could have attended Howard. You're not bright.
Well, see, again, what you're not going to do is take shots at the Mecca. Again, you and your head.
I hate it. I don't hate it. I just think it's a cult.
You know what it is?
I admire the people that have come from Howard. I admire what they do. I admire the whole thing. And if I had been brave, I may have attended myself.
You being around that many black folk would have been triggering for you because you're not used to being around that many black people.
Know my life. You don't know what I am used to and what I'm not used to. I am very skilled in moving in different environments. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about being able to move through different environments and being comfortable in those different environments, but not right now.
So, as we wrap up this episode, which was about the culture, and specifically, I wanted to talk about how, whether it's what the shit show is saying and how it is that he has his opinion of what it is and who it is that black folk are and what it is and who it is that we can achieve, or whether it's about how we show up and support events that are supposed to be of significance for us and where we decide as a culture that is enough. Do we draw the line and then we drew the line at Target and say, okay, you guys disrespected us in this way. We're not going to spend another dime with you. With Essence Fest, do we take the same approach that, hey, until there is some visible leadership that looks like us, we're not going to support this.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
If it's RG3 and his ignorance about how it is that he continues to disrespect and trash or traffic, I should say, advocating or at least sort of looking for putting out these memes that can be offensive to black women. Mm-hmm. You know, we have to start having some difficult conversations about how it is and what it is that we are doing or not doing, other accountable.
Yeah.
And I think a part of that obviously rests with you and I having some of these conversations on shows like this, where we are having, you know, dialogue about what we can do better and how it is that you need to show more respect for the great university that is how and understand things that had it not been for the Mecca, but the achievements that you now granted may have not been there. So with that, again, what the hell are you doing with your? What are you doing?
You're like a crow that just can't. You see something shiny. What's it? What? Focus, John.
Well, you're pulling your hair out. It's because Did you wash it?
I did get my hair washed, actually.
So you're not used to having your hair washed. I'm sorry. All right. So as we wrap up this session, what is, other than the fact that you did not know that picnic was an offensive term, you clearly didn't know what versus is or was, and you one Stephanie Mills song. Tell me again about how it is that you growing up in the all-white space allowed you to be able to be a great representation of black women.
Because again, we are not your definition. A black woman is nuanced. We are so much more than what you can even imagine. Our definition is immense. And so you're going to see black women in corporate America. You're going to see black women in hospitals. You're going to see black women all over the place. And because you don't think that's black, it takes nothing away from our blackness. We love being black. We love the shades of blackness. And Johnny doesn't define what it means to be black. We own it. We're authentic. And we will chart our own course and our own journey and create our own narrative. Thank you. I rest my case.
I am sure that your mentor, Miss Melania Trump, would be a model of you being.
I used that in one of her speeches. And then what it means to be a white woman.
Thank you. Thank you for that passionate speech that no one but you. Think that again, the thing that keeps me optimistic about us as a culture is the fact that, again, when I talked about we have the ability to take a situation that may be dire or that may appear dire and turn it into lemonade. That's been our history. When you see folk freaking out about what's happening in the world today, in the United States today. You see Black people out here living their best lives. You see more of us traveling and doing things that allow us to have that, as you use that term, spontaneous joy, that will allow us to stay focused on, okay, we're going to do the things that we need to do that's going to feed our soul and not get bogged down into these other things that we did our part. We voted the way that we said we were going to vote, or we did some of the things that we said that we were going to do. And so from that standpoint, those things make me proud. I think as I look back on the last week, it's been a very interesting time this July, where we go from all the things that's going on with the shit show and all the pomp and circumstance in terms of the bills and the parades and all that, and you go with where it is that Black people are with respect to the culture, and how it is that we are not paying attention to any of that. We're paying attention, but we're not, and how we're still out here doing what we need to do in order to be successful. And so I want to thank you for taking the time to have the dialogue about where it is and how it is that we are continuing to evolve as a culture. I also want to thank you for taking the time to understand that, or at least I'll say this, I want to thank you for saying, and I do agree, that there's no one way to be Black. We are a very diverse group of people, and there are individuals like you who have very limited exposure to certain things. And there are individuals who have been exposed to Black excellence all of their lives.
And have a very limited, narrow view of the world. But I take your point.
Well, if you're experiencing Black excellence, you are experiencing the world, because Black excellence defines the world.
That's your definition.
That's truth. That is truth. That's not a definition. That's the fact.
Let's hear the comments. Is that Johnny's definition or those facts?
Thank you. With that, thank you again for a very, very interesting conversation, and watching you do something this week with your hair. You started with that, and now you ended up looking like Tina Turner, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, okay with that. I'm all right with that.
Back to that. Guys, thank you again for spending time with us. We know that you have many different things that you can be doing, but we're glad that you're deciding to spend the day and this time with us. As always, take the time this week to do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, take the time to do something nice for someone else. Until we speak to you next time. Talk to you.
Thanks for joining us for another lively discussion. This podcast is a production of the SME Media Group, LLC. All rights are reserved. If you like this episode, click on the link in the right-hand corner and check out additional content. Also, be sure to subscribe to the I Take Your Point podcast to ensure you're getting all of your content. Until next time, take care and be well.